Many believe that giving thanks is merely a gesture of spiritual courtesy, a symbolic act in the face of what is received. But what if this gesture were actually one of the oldest and most powerful technologies of human consciousness? Itzhak Bentov, in his studies on the body and the quantum field, discovered that the simple movement of raising your hands and vibrating in gratitude completely changes the way the universe responds to you. It's not religion, it's not superstition, it's physics applied to the soul. What few people realize is that every emotion you feel is a frequency, and every movement of the body is an antenna. When the heart pulses in gratitude, the brain changes its chemistry, and the field around the body reorganizes itself. In that instant, reality no longer waits to happen, it begins to bend around you. The gesture that many consider a prayer is, in truth, an activation code. Now imagine the impact of understanding that the act of giving thanks with raised hands is not a request, but a vibrational declaration that what you desire has already manifested. The reversal is complete. You cease to be the one who seeks and become the one who radiates. Bentov said that the human body is a sacred electrical circuit, and when connected correctly, it transmits directly to the matrix of the universe. The modern world has lost this wisdom. It has replaced feeling with haste, and internal silence with mental noise. But those who rediscover this gesture and practice it consciously notice that time bends, the impossible yields, and the field responds. Because the universe doesn't understand words, it understands frequencies. And every time you raise your hands in gratitude, you tune into exactly the frequency of the miracle. In this video, you will understand in detail what actually happens in your body, in your energetic field, and in your consciousness when you give thanks before receiving. And perhaps, by the end, you'll realize that the true secret of manifestation was never outside, it has always been vibrating within you. The human body, when observed through the lens of expanded consciousness, reveals itself as a design of cosmic precision. Nothing in its structure is random. Every curve, every oscillation, every vibration is part of an intelligent design that allows matter to communicate with the invisible. Itzhak Bentov realized this when studying the behavior of the body's internal frequencies during meditative state. He noticed that when a human being stands upright, with hands raised, something changes not only in the postural field but in the flow of energy that passes through them. The body becomes a living antenna, an axis connecting earth and sky, the biological and the spiritual. Raised hands create what Bentov called an open reception circuit. In this configuration, the body's bioelectric field expands and aligns with subtle frequencies that normally go unnoticed. It's as if, suddenly, the person tunes into a cosmic channel, a transmission that has always been on the air but requires the correct positioning to be captured. The body then begins to vibrate in resonance with fields beyond the visible spectrum. It is at this point that the human being begins to operate as a conscious intermediary between the planes of matter and the subtle planes of reality. Every position of the body alters the geometric pattern of the energetic field surrounding it. When the arms extend upward, the auric field lengthens, drawing a spiral flow that projects outward, opening passage for universal energy. The body's geometry transforms into a living symbol, a tetrahedron of light, a pulsating structure reflecting the order of the cosmos. In this state, it's not just blood that circulates but also quantum information. The human being ceases to be an isolated organism and begins to function as a transmission bridge between dimensions. Bentov demonstrated that this physical configuration modifies the body's internal oscillations, creating harmonic patterns similar to those found in resonance systems. The heart, brain, and spine begin to operate in synchrony, forming a vertical energetic axis. It is in this alignment that the amplification of subtle perceptions occurs: sounds, internal lights, sensations of expansion, phenomena that many mystics describe as the awakening of consciousness. What seemed like merely a symbolic gesture of raising hands transforms into a technological tool of the spirit. By raising the hands, The human being not only opens to the above, but declares their willingness to actively participate in creation. It's as if saying to the universe, "I am ready to receive and transmit." And in that instant, the body vibrates at a new frequency, in a pattern that brings it closer to the laws of manifestation. Because the true antenna is not made of metal, it is made of flesh, blood, and conscious intention. And it is at this point that the mystery begins to reveal itself, leading us to the next discovery: the power that manifests when gratitude precedes the result. The moment the body assumes the posture of the living antenna, with hands raised, something subtle begins to move within the being's internal field. The gesture awakens an ancient memory, the remembrance that everything that exists has already been created at some level of reality. It is at this point that the power of anticipatory gratitude emerges. It's not about being grateful after receiving, but about feeling gratitude before something happens. This is the secret that transforms consciousness into an active agent of manifestation. Itzhak Bentov understood that the universe doesn't respond to words, but to frequencies. Gratitude is one of them, perhaps the purest, because it carries within itself the vibration of completeness. When someone gives thanks for what they don't yet have, they are telling the quantum field that creation has already been completed in another dimension. The body then begins to vibrate as if the desire had already been fulfilled. In this state, there is no lack, no search. There is only recognition of what already is. The paradox is that by ceasing to ask, the individual becomes the very channel through which the result manifests. Modern science has already demonstrated that the brain doesn't differentiate the real from the imagined when both are fed with genuine emotion. If a person feels deep gratitude for something that hasn't happened yet, the nervous system reacts as if it were already a consolidated memory. Synapses reorganize, glands release corresponding substances, and the entire body begins to operate at the frequency of realization. This is the collapse of the wave function in favor of the observer, the instant when energy condenses into matter through emotional coherence. Anticipatory gratitude, therefore, is not a symbolic act but vibrational engineering. It is the point where faith and physics meet. When an individual raises their hands and truly feels, genuinely feels, the warmth of what they are receiving, they alter their magnetic field. This new energetic signature projects outward, like a code that the universe instantly recognizes. The body, now in tune with the vibration of fullness, emits a clear and coherent signal: this has already happened. And the universe, which always responds to coherence, returns confirmation in the form of circumstances and synchronicities. This practice, repeated consciously, dissolves fear and the sense of lack. Gradually, the individual realizes there is no separation between what they desire and what they are. They understand that the feeling of gratitude is the bridge linking the invisible to the visible. The gesture of raised hands is no longer a prayer but an energetic declaration, a reminder that creation is already underway. And when the heart vibrates in this certainty, the path opens to a new stage of awakening, the moment when the circuit between heart and brain activates, transforming emotion into spiritual intelligence. When the body assumes the geometry of the antenna and gratitude begins to vibrate even before manifestation, something remarkable happens within the subtle biology of the human being. The energetic flow, once dispersed, finds a new rhythm. Bentov observed that this harmony begins in the heart. Not by chance, the heart is the first organ to pulse when the body is formed and the last to silence when consciousness departs. It is the silent conductor of the human energetic system. The heart's electromagnetic field is thousands of times more potent than the brain's, and it is this power that creates a bridge between feeling and thinking. When someone raises their hands in deep gratitude, the energy accumulated at the base of the spine begins to ascend, traversing subtle centers until reaching the heart. There, the energy vibrates with an intensity that reorganizes the field around the body. This vibration then rises to the higher brain, stimulating areas linked to expanded perception. The result is the birth of a circuit. The heart sends impulses of coherence, the brain translates them into image and intention, and both begin to operate in synchrony. This cardiac coherence is not mystical in the poetic sense. It is mystical in the scientific sense. It can be measured, felt, and cultivated. When the heart and brain beat in the same vibrational rhythm, the entire body enters a state of perfect internal communication. The autonomic nervous system reorganizes, and cells begin to respond to a unified command. The mind ceases to be fragmented noise and becomes a stable wave. It is in this state that the human being begins to emit a clear message to the quantum field, without interference. Bentov described this phenomenon as a rhythm of harmonic alignment. He understood that in the instant when heart and brain resonate together, the being transforms into a conscious transmitter of cosmic information. Gratitude, then, is no longer just a feeling. It is the activation code that awakens the internal circuit. In this state, the body becomes a tuned instrument, a harp vibrating with the universe. The coherence between heart and brain is what distinguishes common thought from conscious creation. While isolated thought is noise, aligned vibration is universal language. When the being reaches this point, every emotion, every breath, every impulse is a note within a greater symphony. Energy flows without resistance, and the entire body becomes a field of pure resonance. And it is precisely this resonance that prepares the ground for the next stage of awakening, when the individual, upon entering harmony with their own internal circuit, begins to feel connected to something much greater than themselves, the living field of collective consciousness. When heart and brain enter coherence, the body ceases to operate as an isolated system and begins to function as an antenna tuned to a vast collective field. Bentov understood that individual consciousness is an extension of a much larger network, an invisible ocean where all human experiences are recorded. Rupert Sheldrake would later call this structure the morphogenetic field, but the ancients already knew that the mind doesn't end at the limits of the skin. It extends, connects, vibrates, and influences. Every human gesture carrying genuine intention leaves a trace in this field. Thousands of years of hands raised in prayer, of hearts vibrating in devotion, have created a living matrix of energy that hovers over humanity like a library of spiritual experiences. When someone repeats this gesture with presence, they are not only connecting with the universe, they are tuning into a frequency that has been fed by countless beings before them. The body becomes an antenna not only to the cosmos but also to humanity's spiritual history. This morphic resonance is like a melody repeated on different instruments. Each person who enters this state of gratitude and alignment adds another layer of vibration to the cosmic symphony. This is why when someone surrenders body and soul to the gesture of gratitude with raised hands, the field responds with a force that seems multiplied. It's not just individual energy, but a convergence of vibrational memories that amplify each other. Bentov said that the human being is a sensory extension of the universe itself, and that each spiritual experience is like an echo reverberating in all other beings. When an individual achieves coherence, they not only elevate themselves but elevate the vibrational pattern of the collective. This is why masters, mystics, and ancient shamans performed rituals in almost identical ways across different cultures and eras, not because they copied each other, but because they all accessed the same field of information. The posture, the feeling, the sound, everything served to tune into this invisible network. In this state of resonance, the human being ceases to be a supplicant before the divine and becomes a participant in creation. Individual intention is absorbed by the collective field, amplified by it, and returned in the form of accelerated manifestation. It's as if the entire universe conspired so that the most coherent vibration would be heard. Each breath, each heartbeat begins to resonate with this silent chorus filling the space between us all. And it is precisely at this point that personal power reaches its peak. Because by realizing they don't manifest alone, the individual awakens to a new understanding. that by raising their hands they are operating on behalf of a unified consciousness. And it is from this perception that the next step emerges, the moment when the physical gesture alters energetic polarity, transforming the receiver into a transmitter of creation. When the being understands they are part of a living network of consciousness, something inside them changes. They cease to perceive themselves as a passive observer and begin to feel like a force acting within the field itself. It is in this instant that the gesture of the hands gains new meaning. Bentov described this movement not as symbolic but as an energetic ignition key. Hands down represent the receptive mode, the flow that descends, absorption, contemplation. Hands up symbolize the active mode, the impulse that rises, emission, conscious creation. By reversing the polarity of the hands, the being alters their internal state. The autonomic nervous system responds immediately, exchanging the survival pattern for the creation pattern. The body exits defense mode, where fear and scarcity control responses, and enters expansive mode, where vital flow circulates freely. Breathing deepens, the heart opens, and energy, once retained, begins to rise. This polarity inversion is more than a physical movement. It is an energetic declaration that the individual ceases to wait for the miracle to become the very channel of the miracle. Bentov affirmed that the human body is an instrument of constant oscillation, a frequency generator. When someone raises their hands, this generator changes tuning. The energetic circuit, which normally turns inward, expands outward, radiating information to the quantum field. The being becomes a transmitter, a center of vibrational emission capable of altering the density of surrounding reality. In this state, thoughts and emotions are no longer simple mental impulses, they are coded commands sent to the energetic matrix sustaining the universe. This inversion also awakens an ancestral intelligence, the memory that creation is not a process coming from outside but a natural expression of what the being is. When energy begins to flow from inside out, the body transforms into a portal. Each cell participates in the emission, each fiber vibrates with the life impulse wanting to manifest. The individual no longer feels like they're asking, they feel like they're delivering. And paradoxically, it is in this act of surrender that reality responds. The inversion of receptive polarity is the point where the human being realizes their biology is designed to create. The upward flow of the hands indicates they have assumed their role in the architecture of the cosmos, no longer waiting for light to descend, but allowing the light within to rise and expand. And when this energy traverses the higher centers, a new phenomenon begins to emerge. Time seems to dissolve, and what was once waiting transforms into absolute presence. The energetic flow reaches its maximum point when the body already operates as a coherent instrument. In this state, consciousness begins to perceive time differently. The internal clock loses its linearity, and what was once past or future begins to pulse within the same instant. Bentov called this phenomenon the curvature of temporal perception, the moment when the body's vibration becomes so harmonic that spacetime itself responds to consciousness's frequency. Intense gratitude, when sustained with fullness, functions as a force capable of bending time around the observer. Energy circulates through the body in a spiral, connecting heart to brain and creating a stable magnetic field. In this stability, thought ceases to move in a straight line and begins to expand in all directions. The feeling of fulfillment doesn't come from something that will happen, but from the perception that the result is already vibrating within the now. Bentov observed that at this point, the brain enters synchrony with rhythms similar to those of deep meditative state. Harmonic waves begin to replace the chaotic activity of the common mind. The heart sends coherence impulses, and the mind responds by opening portals of perception. Time, which once dragged between desire and occurrence, dissolves. The being realizes that the future doesn't need to arrive because it already exists in the present, just in another vibrational frequency. The ecstatic experience emerges from this fusion. The body vibrates at a constant tone, the heart becomes the command center of creation, and the mind, freed from urgency, begins to see reality as a single field in motion. In this state, everything consciousness focuses on manifests naturally, effortlessly, because there is no distance between impulse and result. The sensation is of living outside time, in an expanded present where wanting and receiving become the same action. Bentov described this state as the apex of interaction between biology and consciousness. The body, calibrated and awakened, transforms into an antenna vibrating at the frequency of eternity. The observer ceases to wait for the miracle and begins to perceive it in constant progress. And when this clarity settles in, a silent understanding emerges. Time was never a line, it has always been a mirror where the now reflects in infinite possibilities. And it is in this vibrant mirror, where feeling shapes the real, that the true power of gratitude reveals itself, not as a request, but as recognition that everything is already moving in your direction. Think about this before sleeping, before waking, before reacting to life. Every gesture you make, every thought, every emotion is a transmission. When you raise your hands and feel gratitude, even without apparent reason, the field around you changes. And when the field changes, life changes with it. So from now on, practice. Not as someone repeating an exercise, but as someone recalling an ancient secret. Allow yourself to feel the body as an antenna, the heart as a transmitter, and the mind as a decoder of the divine. And above all, feel gratitude before achievement, because it is this feeling that opens the doors of the invisible. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment when gratitude completely transformed your reality? I want to know your experience, and if this content touched something inside you, if it made you realize the power that has always been there, in your own body, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and continue diving with me into this path of consciousness expansion. The next step may be the deepest of your journey.